Welcome back to the Paddle and Fin Podcast Network. We're brought to you by YakGadget for all your fine quality kayak fishing accessories. Go to yakgadget.com. Pelican cases, coolers, and lighting. Go to pelican.com. And the 153 Bait Company for all your hard and soft bait needs. Go to the 153angler.com. So join with me as together we dive into the tips and techniques that will help make us better anglers out on the water. Welcome back to the Bass Fishing for Noobs segment here on the Paddle and Fin Podcast. I am your host, Sean Lavrier, and tonight I have with us a gentleman who I searched on the internet for someone to talk to about spinnerbaits. So I'd like to welcome Mr. Tim Perkins to the Bass Fishing for Noobs show. Welcome, Tim. You are
glad
live,
to be here,
sir.
Sean. Thanks for the invite.
Thank you for
Yes.
no problem. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to chat with me and the folks this evening. So for those of the folks out there who haven't heard of you, why don't you let them know who you are, kind of where you're from, how you got into fishing, and anything else you want them to know about you.
Okay. Well, I'm the greatest fisherman that ever lived from Heflin, Alabama. No, I'm just a good old boy that grew up fishing rivers and creeks and have a passion about fishing. And I've been a teacher and a coach most of my life. I'm like a third generation river guy. And I'd say probably about 12 years ago, transferred over from the bass boat world. I did that for 20 years and actually made it to the All-American a couple times. And I saw an advertisement with Drew Gregory about river bassing. And I told my wife, I said, I could do that. So I ended up fishing the whole series with river bassing in 2011. I actually think I won 4 of them. There were 6 national events. I think I won 4 of them, and I finished second in one. I think I finished third in one, and I won the national title up in your neck of the woods. Up in we were on the the Broad River, I think. Not the Broad. The New. Excuse me, the New.
Oh,
I had a senior moment there. Up in Virginia.
Yeah,
so that
is
year,
a little
I think
closer
I traveled about 13 states. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And that kind of a river like you're used to, too. So, I mean, the New River's huge. Mm-hmm. And, here where I'm from, most people call what we call rivers creeks. But I'm actually known. I've done a lot of a couple of TV shows, and I've done some other videos that I'm like a skinny water specialist, but that's all I know. I mean, that's what I've done for most of my life here in North Alabama. My passion is the Alabama spotted bass. I love that creature, especially in these little small skinny waters. Matter of fact, I just worked with a friend on an article that's coming out, and he wanted us to rank. And that's the question with you smallmouth guys and bass fishermen across the country. Well, if you ranked them, 1 through whatever, where would you rank them at? That one's at the top of my food chain. He knows where he lives at, and he knows how to use it against you, just like with the smallmouth. So
interesting.
Anyway,
I just interviewed a gentleman last week who was telling me that shoal bass are at the top of his list, and so I now have a bunch of species on my bucket list that I gotta try and track down.
Let me tell you this one, and this is odd, okay? And I hadn't even conferred. Lance Coley and I know you know Lance. Lance and I have been travel partners for ever since river bassing days, and I mean, Lance is a river guru, and we've been everywhere. But at the top of my list, you would never guess what was at the top of my list, and that's the red eye.
Okay.
That's the red eye bass right here in North Alabama. Pound for pound, hardest fighting fish, never gives up, acrobats, beautiful fish. I mean, you can't say enough about it. And I used to say that if that fish ever got 3 pounds, it'd probably pull you out of the kayak and whip you. But in the last few, I actually held the state record for about 20 years here on the red eye, and that was at the top of my list, was the red eye. So if you've not caught a red eye, you need to catch a red eye. And actually, one of my twins, who's 14, has actually broken the state record. He broke it 3 times last year.
Wow.
But every time I put up pictures, you have those experts out there that say, "Oh, that's a hybrid, man. That's a hybrid." It's still a red eye. And but we're just over the Georgia line, so you can't officially call it Alabama state record. And and at one point, he elected. I let him have the choice, because I told him, I'm like, "Dude, this is a record," and I said, this fish will probably have to die in order to get you a record. And he elected to turn her loose. So I'm very proud of him. We got plenty of pictures and, that kind of thing.
Cool.
But
what kind of kayak are you fishing out of? Oh, red.
I fish out of a wilderness system kayak. Yeah.
Okay. I thought I saw you were on. Are you still on their team, or are you on Team Wilderness Systems?
I am. I'm actually one of their national managers for their. We've revamped our whole pro staff, and I'm actually the assistant manager for the pro team. I think we got 7 guys across the country, and I'm the assistant manager for the national team for the Wilderness System pro staff. And we got some big changes coming up and some good stuff, but we're like everybody else, man. We're right in the middle of some funk, man, that I'm ready to shift out of,
Right. No, I think a lot of companies.
Nobody can get boats. Nobody can get parts.
Yep. I was just going to say that this whole situation kind of knocked everybody for a loop. So, and I think in addition to,
I'm ready to move forward.
Yeah. In addition to all that, you're also on the Alabama Hammers with Dan Perry, who is also one of my fellow paddle and fin hosts. So shout out to Mr. DP.
And we've had a great year. And and my thing is, we've actually fished awful conditions. I mean, if you want to put up a KFL tournament, then look, it's gonna rain multiple inches. I mean, it's going to be the worst kind of environment that you possibly can, and we've been able to be successful. So, that's pretty cool.
Definitely.
Got a hurricane out now. We're going to Florida this weekend, so there's a hurricane out.
That's crazy. That's some intense fishing there, I'm sure.
It is. I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed the format, And I hope it goes from that.
There's a team from really right around
believe, I believe if they can. I believe if the person that can get the televised kayak fishing down pat is going to own the market. I really believe that, because there's a lot of folks that are turning in and turning on to kayak fishing. They love it.
I think you're right. I think it's going to pick up, and whoever does it right is going to own it. And so there's a race on, I think, to nail that, knock it out of the park, and someone's going to do it, and they're going to be, the owners of it until they give it up. So.
And there's multiple markets in that. I'm actually working on a textbook. I'm co-authoring a textbook on kayak fishing, because there's no resources out there for some of these high school teams. And I live in a fairly small town here, and there's not enough bass boat community to support a fishing team. And so there's a guy in Georgia, I think they're on their 2nd year, and he's got a very successful thing going on. He's going to work with me here in the state of Alabama. We're going to try to get it going on in Alabama. and we're pushing that textbook also. So, like I said, there's a lot of exciting avenues and sources to put kayak fishing into. You know, I mean, what kind of deal would that be to have kids out there, or junior college or college kids out there doing it? You know, and it'll be televised.
That sounds awesome. And I mean, just hearing you say that you're going to write a textbook on bass fishing, I think I got the right guy to tell us about spinnerbaits then. 'Cause holy cow! So,
Oh,
and
well,
I think
I've got a good co-author. I said I'm co-authoring.
I actually, and the way I found you is I stumbled on an article that another gentleman had written with you about spinnerbait fishing. I was just searching, for information on them, thinking that would make a good show. And I stumbled upon that article and had a lot of good content.
Do you
So
remember who it was?
I'd have to look back. I cannot remember. It was.
There's a guy that does a lot of stuff for me. His name is Ed Mashburn, and he freelance writes for 3 or 4 different magazines. And we were in Grand Isle about 3. That's it. Great Days Outdoors, probably.
Yes. Yep. That was it.
We were in Grand Isle, and I was trying my hand at red fishing for the first time. I'd never red fished. That was 3 years ago. And we were there, and there were 17 of us in this little campground. Nobody caught a fish that day. And I asked him, I'm like, dude, what do we need to be throwing? He says, man, you throw what would you be throwing if you had bass fishing? I said, a spinnerbait. And he says, throw it. The next day, I took one of our spinnerbaits and I tried to match it up. And we have a color, it's called Houdini. And I put a trailer on it. It looked like a little mullet. I caught 15 reds that day, and nobody else caught a fish. Wow. And he did an article on that spinnerbait. Man, he was just mesmerized. So, and I become a fan of red fishing from that day on, man. I mean, that's awesome.
That is another fish I gotta get to try. But yeah.
And Ed cooked one, and I'm gonna tell you that is probably the best fish. And I live on the Tallapoosa River here in North Alabama. The Tallapoosa River, according to the Department of Interior, is the cleanest river in the eastern United States, period. So I don't eat fish out of nothing but that river. And, I pride those spots that I fillet and eat from time to time. But I'm going to tell you something, that red fish that he cooked on the half shell, left the skin and all on one side and put it on the grill with some butter and lemon. Ooh, man. It was fine.
Nice.
But I know, I'm a big guy. I could talk about eating all the time, but we're here to talk about spinnerbaits.
That's right. So
I have been.
Where do you want to get started? Yeah.
I can start from the beginning on how I got hooked up with Redline. I had a great opportunity, and I've been very blessed in this aspect of it, because there's not many people. You go to a tackle store and you see like Strike King, you see KVD's picture all over everything, his signature on everything, and you don't know many people who's got their picture and their signature on a bait or a package. Now, I'm not on that kind of scale, but my picture and my signature is on every bait that Redline does. I don't know if you can see that. So long story short, I'll try to make a condensed version of it. But when I was fishing with a spinnerbait, and I was having a lot of success with this particular spinnerbait. The spinnerbait company went out of business. Couldn't find them nowhere. Well, I've got a friend that was in the BASS circuit. Dalton Bobo lives in Northport, Alabama. I give Dalton a call, and I said, look, man, I'm looking for this spinnerbait. Can you find me something? And he's a contact dude. Look, he knows people all over everywhere. And if it can be found, he can find it. He's like, let me build it. Let us build it. I said, what are you talking about? He said, well, look, I'm part of a spinnerbait company. And at that point, it was under a different name. And then, you know, he bought out Ricky McKenzie, bought out all the partners. And anyway, long story short, they took my specs and they built this spinnerbait. And that's what I won the national championship on. And that bait will catch fish. I know to catch them in 20 different states. But it's an awesome bait. And Ricky McKenzie, my hat's off to him. He's a small company, but he's family. And, you know, you have a lot of young anglers, and all they think about is getting all these sponsors, you know. And but sponsors will come. You know, I was there at once upon a time. But what you want to do is you want to build relationships. And that's what it's all about. And with Redline, that is a special relationship. Ricky takes we talk just about every day. And sometimes in the middle of the night, I'll have an idea of something. But I mean, I've actually designed about 3 or 4 baits for him. And it's all been good. It works good. And, you know, our baits are a little bit different. But they're custom baits, and we're selling them at a box price. And a box price means, you know, like going to, and I'm not trying to slam Strike King or anybody else, but that is a box bait. I mean, they're mass produced, and, you know, and they're probably not made here. I'll just leave it at that. But we're American made, and I promise you, from top to bottom, there was thought that went into every bit of that. It was not, there's no corners cut. From the quality of the blade, the size of the wire, the material that the split rings are made out of, the skirt, the eyes, you know, the size of the blades. There was a meticulous process on every bit of that, man. And, you know, if I'm going to use something and promote something, then it's going to be something that I use. And, you know, you don't see me out here, and I'm not toot my own horn, but I don't promote a lot of products, but I do promote the things that I do believe in, and I've had success with it. And I've got others in our business that, I mean, some of them will secretly say it, but, and I won't call any names, Jeff Little. I mean, I didn't mean to say that, but have secretly seen it in action. And hey, it works. It's a good bait. Now, it's not for everybody. I'm not going to turn you, try to twist your arm and try to make you do this or do that. And I think I explained to you too that hopefully I can slow down about October. I'm going to try to do a whole series on our line of spinnerbaits, because people have a lot of questions about spinnerbaits. You know, that's that bait at one time that ruled the Bass Nation. And they're not advertised a lot anymore.
Right.
But I guarantee you, all those top dogs are.
That's kind of why I wanted to go back and kind of highlight it. Right.
Yeah, there you go.
So, yep.
Now that is the River Series right there. Now,
okay.
Now look at this bait right here. What's the first thing that you notice about those blades? I mean, look close.
Kind of. The tips are a little bit different.
Well, it's gold. They use a jeweler's process.
Okay.
And their little motto is twice the flash, double the flash.
Okay.
Because a spinnerbait, when it comes to the water, the light reflects off of that blade, and it has a reflection point. Every one of them do. But if you've got this gold, and then with this jeweler's process, how they've made these tips a different color, it's like a gold and silver, then you've got 2 reflection points per blade. So on a combination there, I've got 4 reflection points on that one spinnerbait right there.
Okay.
Now that's probably our most common. That is a 3/8, but it's got a hidden weight system in it. So that 3/8 gives off a profile about a quarter ounce spinnerbait. That's another thing. It just don't overpower a lot of things. And I think that in itself, with twice the flash and the small profile and the light wire, is what makes that bait so deadly. I use the that river series. That's our river series. And if you notice
Okay.
that head, it's kind of a banana shaped head. It'll come
Mm,
through anything.
yeah. Okay. I
But
was gonna say that's.
but I, those are big things, man. I mean, if you really think about it. But I take this one, this chartreuse and white river series with that combination on it, and a black pro stripe, and I fish it 90% of the time. Dude, if I can't catch fish on that, it's time to go to the house. I heard Drew Gregory make a comment. We stayed with each other at me, him, and Lance stayed out Texas at the Bassmaster Classic, and I kid Drew all the time. He kids me, and we've been in the industry a while, And matter of fact, when his kid was born, I give him his first gift, and I give him one of these spinnerbaits with my picture on it.
That's
And
awesome.
I kid him about it. I'm like, dude, you may not use it. I said, but somebody's gonna be smart in your family. But we play a lot. But where I'm going is, I kid Drew all the time. I mean, he's probably one of the hottest fishermen out there right
Hmm.
now. I mean, he is in the top in the points race in several different associations, but he don't hide what he's throwing. But he made a statement pretty profound, and that's where I'm at. He knows what kind of water he can catch fish on that bait, and that's where I'm at with the two choices that I use most of the time. I know what kind of water I can catch those fish in, and that I do a lot of homework, and I try to find that water that I feel good in. And that's what we do. I learned a long time ago, you backing up trying to play another man's game. So do what you do. I
Yep.
throw a
Yep.
spinnerbait.
I think there's a lot of wisdom in that statement for sure. So back to
But
kind of the basics. When you're picking your spinnerbait, I saw that one had kind of a combination of it looked like a willow on the bottom
Willa,
and then
Colorado,
okay. And is that
a
generally how most
Colorado.
of yours are?
That's a good starting point for me.
Uh,
If I'm unfamiliar with the area or whatever, I mean, that particular setup is the one that I won that championship on under multiple different conditions, multiple different waters. I know it works, but you can expand from that. I mean, and what would make me decide to change from anything would be water clarity, uh, current, some of the things that I couldn't control, and when you start thinking about clear water, you don't need to slow a bait down, you need to speed it up. So what I would do is I'd change that blade. I would have probably two willows, and I might even reduce the size where I could rip it, really burn it through the water. Now,
mhm.
if it was a little more dense, the water was a little more stained, I'd probably go uh, with that combination, and I might even change over to a couple of Colorados, even to a single Colorado. Just trying to provide just a little more thump to it. But I want to go back just a little bit though on that river series in particular. Um, there's a lot of people that do complain sometimes, and I want to say this about Ricky at Redline. If there's ever a complaint about any of the manufacturer, the workmanship, because look, you know, things do happen. And I promise you, he'll make it right. He takes that much pride in what he does. He will make it right. There was about 5 years ago, there was a guy trying to give us a little bit of rap. And, he was giving some rap on a spinnerbait that I handed him free. And I don't understand that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But it is a light wire spinnerbait, and I want to do a complete video because we don't have enough time in a day for the pros about a light wire spinnerbait. But there's also some cons with that light wire. I'm constantly looking at this spinnerbait. And if you see how this makes a V, I'm making sure my V is, because, when especially some of these spots, when they get on that are a good fish, they're going to bend that light wire. So I do a lot of times, throughout my day, I'll look at that V, make sure that it runs that way, but I'll also turn it that way where I can see that it's running straight. And, every now and then I may have to take it and tweak it just a little bit, but I'm right back in action. But, Sean, it's my job. I put these things through a vigorous test. And Ricky will tell you, I did a video one time on how many spots I could catch before it broke or failed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I caught like 186 before it finally.
But
wow. If you take wire and you bend it and bend it and bend it and bend it and bend it, eventually it's going to break.
Right.
And, this is just like any other. It's actually a perishable deal. I mean, it's going to give out sooner or later. I mean, you're only paying $6 or $7 for it. But a lot of those box store spinnerbaits people are used to have got that heavy wire, that you can pull a truck with. But they're not getting that thump and that vibration. They're not getting those fish that I'm getting. I promise you. And, I just wanted to say something about that. Lance is he's on our pro staff, and Lance fishes predominantly, and him and Drew Gregory, they fish total braided line. I don't fish braid that much unless I have to, but he fishes braided line, and he had to back off on his rod, his setup a little bit, because you can use and abuse a soft wire spinnerbait with braided line, because that braided line don't have any stretch to it. And I get it, but anyway, we'll get into that whenever you get ready to. But I just like talking about the baits itself. Again, I do those little quick checks about the V, and then I look at it in line. As long as it's running in line with that hook, then I'm good, and it's going to run correctly. But we did a lot of research on blade sizes, combinations, because the worst thing in the world that I see out of a lot of other spinnerbaits is they want to roll, which means they turn. When you put a lot of pressure on it in current or something like that, that blade will turn. But these are all set up where they're tank tested, where that thing will run correctly, like a real bait fish. I mean, you don't rarely ever see a bait fish turn upside down, swimming upside down, but yeah. And that's a key too about, my forte is fishing those little skinny waters, but picking wood apart. Dude, I can pick it apart with the best of them. And to me, a spinnerbait that rolls over when you're trying to fish wood is a nightmare. I can't have that, because it's a very frustrating day. But
right.
Anyway, I use that one, and I also use a. Now, you'll have to forgive me on this one, because this is the quickest one I could find, and Ricky would kill me because the blades have got some water spots on them. But, and he takes pride in the fact that he has a high-quality blade. And that's the thing that I tell a lot of people, too. I said, I tell you the difference in ours and a box store. I said, you can use it, put it in your box, and the sucker won't rust and won't be ruined after one or two times if you forget it. Now, I don't try to tempt that. I try to take precautions, so that it will look its best when I want to use it. I'll hang mine. I've got a little rack in my kayak, and I got a little rack in my truck. When I get off the water, I let them dry. And I might even take a paper towel and just rub those blades to get the water spots off. But you won't find any of our split rings or any of that stuff rusting like you see some of these other people. And, I leave trailers in them, which has got salt in it and all that other good stuff. But they won't rust. The hooks won't rust. Got a high quality hook. But anyway, I was going to this Pro Strike. And if you notice about this Pro Strike, yes, we have the same little deal, but we've got Indiana blades.
Okay.
Got two Indiana blades now, and that's black. And what makes this so cool is I play. That's a whole nother episode there with how I come up with this combination of trailers that I use. But I put a ultra vibe speed chunk. That is a Zoom product. You can't find another one like that. But these chunks, very important on that black spinnerbait.
Okay.
And I've had this argument. with a lot of guys on the circuit. They don't believe that I can take a spinnerbait and mimic a crawfish. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. I have caught more big fish on that black spinnerbait with that chunk than you could put in this house, probably. I mean, it's crazy. Crazy. And a lot of times, they think it's a frog. They think it's a crawfish, just something with those tentacles. But how I started that, I was using a different bait, but I was using these long legs to keep as a keel to keep that bait from turning. So the hook would always be in a position where I could get a good hookup with. And I said, well, wow, man, why don't I put that on one of our spinnerbaits? And I did, and I haven't backed up. Now I do another little trick. Now I'm giving all my juice up tonight, but I do another little trick.
Is that the model that you're talking about?
That is the Pro Strike. That is
okay.
It.
Cool.
And I use a 3/8 most of the time. I will go to a half if like we have been in the last few months. I don't think I've ever seen a summer this wet. And I have to go to those bigger spinnerbaits because the current's a lot heavier. Mm-hmm. And that's the secret behind the River Series. Like we'll have a quarter, a 3/8, and a half, but they all have the same blade sizes and same pattern.
Okay.
The thing that we couldn't manipulate was the current. So if I went with a heavier spinnerbait with the same blade, then I'm getting down into that strike zone in that heavy current where I was riding high with that 3/8 or that quarter. And that's how all that got started. So that's why we actually called it the River Series. And then we came up with this Pro Strike, which is an awesome spinnerbait. And, most people ask me, said, well, do you throw black just on overcast condition? I'm like, heck no, I throw it 24/7 if I could, But I do a lot of tricks. You can take that with that ultraviolet chunk and pull it over a log. That's what I love doing, fishing wood. And you pull it over that log and it leaves a silt trail. Well, if you just drop that spinnerbait and those legs are doing that, oh my gosh, that's money, buddy. That's money. But I do a little trick. And I've been doing this probably 20 years. I didn't know somebody had this on the market. I've actually seen them, but I don't know if you can see that. See that little red thing? Mm-hmm. There's a little red thing on my hook right there. That is a coffee can lid, like a coffee can, the lid. And I took a hole punch, and I punched, and I made these little plastic discs. Well, that makes my chunk ride straight on that hook like that. It's always in a straight position. And that's another little key for the whole thing. But
nice.
That's
definitely
it in a nutshell. Yeah. Now, I am actually sponsored by Pure, which owns Abu Garcia. They own Berkeley. There's several different companies. I get asked that question a lot. What kind of setup do you throw? And people laugh at me, but Abu's got some great products. I've probably been around the world and back, but I keep going back to Abu. That was the first reel I ever got as a kid. Was an Abu, and but my rod setup, I use a lightning rod. They're generation 2, 6 foot for the small tight areas, and a 6.6 medium lightning rod is, and this is strictly my opinion, is the best spinnerbait and bladed jig rods on the market. And at the price point you can get that stupid thing. Here's the thing. I've had big money rods, and in kayak fishing, I don't know if this is just my problem, but I've actually had some of those high dollar rods, and at the end of the year, I won't have all the eyes on them. Some of the finish is coming off, but I can take that lightning rod, dude. All the eyes will last. They'll be on there, and it'll just be a dependable product. So, and two, I've got 14-year-old kids that I try to equip. Dude, I would cry if I seen a $300 or $400 rod and it broke. Oh, Dad, it was a mistake, So we use lightning rods, and it works. And I use mono. I don't use braid.
Okay.
And I'm not sponsored by a line company, but I'll tell you what I do. I mean, I use Academy Sports. They make a line. It's their H2O. It's their line, but there's a special color there. It's almost a gunmetal gray, and it dissipates in every water I've ever been in. But it's nothing more than like a Berkeley big game. It's a tough old line, but dude, I'm buying a quarter pound spool, like 2 for $5, and I'll buy up 30 or 40. So I change my line every time I go fishing. But that combination for me, spinnerbaiting, is money. I mean, it's magic. So I mean, if it ain't broke, I'm not gonna fix it.
So a medium rod, 6 foot to 6.5 foot.
Yep.
Okay. Interesting.
And I use a 15-pound test in that line.
Okay.
And I've actually had those. I used Revo SX. Revo, I think they made an MGX, but they also make a midline reel that's called a Silver Max. Dude, that's money. I've introduced that to several guys on the that we fish around, and they love them, man. You can't wear them out. And I mean, it just seems to be just the right ticket, man.
And what speed reel are you using?
6.4. Some of them I've got some 7.3s maybe. But usually that 6 is a magic. I can pull it where I need to and how I need to. And but the thing is, they take up a lot of slack, and I think that's key too. But mainly is that loose action rod. I teach my kids too. One of my boys actually caught I forget now what that fish weighed. It was 11 something. We were down in Florida, and he thumbed that fish down, or he would never landed that fish. Didn't have a net, and I couldn't get to him in time, and I'm trying to coach him, but he did an awesome job thumbing that thing down, and that's just letting you rod play with it, I think a lot of people just try to overpower everything. They do. And, but that's what I grew up with, man. I mean, I've got my grandfather's old rod, and you would laugh at it. Sometime or another, we need to do that. I need to send you some pictures of it. It's a 4-foot glass rod, and it has a pistol grip in it made out of it was cast aluminum, and there was about 5 guys in this area that had that. It was all handmade. But dude, they were just road cast. And that old rod's about like a hickory. And, they didn't lose fish, man. I mean, they were meat hunters. So, I mean, they didn't need to lose fish. But, I think people don't emphasize enough and find what works for them, because my setup may not work for you. But, that's the one thing that I really emphasize is the setup on the whole thing. And I'm not breaking spinnerbaits. I'm not bending them out of whack. It just works.
Now, for those of our listeners who don't know what you mean by thumbing the fish to land it, what can you explain that to them?
I master clutched. Yeah, I mashed the clutch to disengage the reel like I was going to cast it, but I've got a fish on, and I keep pressure with my thumb on that spool, and I just let him pull just enough off that I'm not just really just putting the brakes on him, because I really do over tighten my drags, and I've lost too many good fish depending on a drag. So if you watch some of these pros on TV, you watch them, they'll thumb a fish in a heartbeat. And I feel like that I'm more in control by being able to thumb that fish. Uh, I'm giving him just enough leeway to wear him out. I'll reel him up and I'll thumb it. I may thumb it 4 or 5 times before I get that fish in. But that's something that everybody needs to put in their little arsenal. Let that fish, especially you smallie guys, and I've had to learn that through smallie guys is you guys do a better job about playing that fish down and letting him wear himself down, and before you try to retrieve that fish. I'm from the land of Bubba. Everybody likes to have that Bubba stuff. They just want to Bubba snatch, jerk, get that fish, rip him lips. It don't work that way, man. It's like killing that first big buck. You get that first one in it, then it becomes an art. And I see people that get their hands out of position, and I forget now. I mean, to be good at what you do, you got to study what you do. And I listen to a lot of people. I have the opportunity to fish with a lot of big names, and dude, I listened to, I can't remember now who it was, but it was somebody like at Bass U or somewhere. And they were talking about keeping your hands around your chest as you're fighting a fish, even on a hook set. I mean, I see people that just get, way out of position. And they lose those fish because a fish, first of all, he knows where he lives at. He knows his environment. And if he gets just a little bit of slack, that's like you're gone. That's why you should always practice, whatever your hand positioning is, you ought to practice that and make it a conscious effort that you work your hands to that area right there. And I teach that. I mean, I do to my kids and anybody else that asks that wants to know. I do use a couple of trailers.
Okay.
We hadn't talked about that. I'm not.
Do you ever throw it or do you always use a trailer, or you sometimes throw without?
No. Sometimes I throw without. Again, clear water situation. And Ricky, on those skirts that he has a top quality skirt, and you can get them either or. You flip the skirt over, and it's you've got longer strands on the bottom of it that actually acts and pulsates like a trailer, but it's part of the skirt. Or you can flip the skirt back over, and you got an even skirt that you can put a trailer on. And that's why when we say that these are custom baits, you can get it either or. You can order them offline, or you can call him. I highly recommend you doing that. If you ever, feel interested in buying some of our products, is to talk to Ricky. And, a lot of times he'll refer you to me, and look, I'm available. So I'll tell you anything that you need to know. All right. Predominantly on my River Series type baits, I throw just a regular split tail trailer, just like that. It's just a zoom. And that's in a pearl, but they make 4 or 5 different colors. It's just whatever the doctor ordered. Just a little shimmy, just a little something. And that's a Zoom product. I've tried to go to other brands, but they just don't seem to work. They'll either stick or, stick together. They won't open up right, won't operate right. Then I use these Zoom Ultra Vibe chunks. Now, that is actually a jig trailer. It is. But Sean, I can't tell you how many times, like in our business, that it's got a chunk. You can see that profile right there.
Yeah.
But it's those legs. It's that Speed Ultra Vibe leg there, that foot. I can't tell you the times I've caught a fish. I've actually got this on video, and I videoed it probably 4 or 5 times, where I caught a fish, I got the fish in my hands. I take the spinnerbait out to measure my fish, and I flip my bait over the kayak. And as my bait is falling to the bottom, those legs, that leg action, you know, and I almost pull my rod off the kayak. So that tells you we want that bait. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And you know, I've shared that a lot, but there's not many people that's ever tried that. And I'm not just selling you that. I'm just, you know, you don't even have to buy our spinnerbait, but I promise you that by putting that chunk on the back of it on a black spinnerbait, that's money, dude. In the famous words of Stale Cracker, that's money, dude. You don't
I'm
even know
definitely
who
going to
Stale
give that a
Cracker
try.
is.
I do not know who Stale Cracker is, but I'm going to take your word for that and give it a try for sure. So interesting. All right.
I would suggest that that you just go to our website and just go to checking it out. He's got several top quality jigs. He's got a bladed jig. Our bladed jig is called the Grass Hog, and he's got some super colors that are not on the market. And one of the top brands, I happen to know a couple of people that were actually sponsored by a couple of the other top brands. They seen one of our colors and now have that in their line now. So, I mean, we've got some, and we're actually have got a trophy page on there. So go out there and look. I mean, you know, don't take my word for it. There's some pros and cons for it, but we got a lot of great products out there. Just go check them out. Redline.com.
And that, I was going to say redlinelures.com. So, for sure. Cool, man. Well, I will definitely be checking that out. And I'll make sure I'll try and include that link when we post the show for the folks who are kind of lazy like me and just want to be able to click on something and go there. So,
yeah, there you go.
Cool, man. All right. So we covered a lot of stuff. Is there any other hints or tips you think the beginner spinnerbaiter should know? How about like uh, what kind of water are you looking for to throw it in? Like what screams to you this is the best place to throw a spinnerbaiter? Is it pretty much basically what you throw?
Well, again, I'm looking for that water that I know that I can catch a fish on. But it's like Lance Coley says, I've got a magnet in my butt that takes me to wood. I love wood, old laid down logs, stumps. I love that. And if I see that and I've got just a little bit of current, whether it's wind, whether it's a creek or, you know, some kind of current, that's money to me, you know, and that's what I'm looking for. Now, I've been able to do the same thing with rock and, you know, some of that thing as I'm learning the smallmouth bit. I'm very intrigued about that animal. I love catching them. I do. That is and you know, going back to what we were talking about earlier, and I'm rambling now, but the show bass, that guy put the show bass up there. To me, that is the southern version of a smallmouth. I swear to you, that they're almost like kissing cousins. And in my list, I put them as a tie because they are ferocious. They are ferocious. But the only thing that I have with it with a smallmouth is that can be a finicky little joker. You know, one day he wants to play and he wants to play hard, but dude, you may go back out there 2 more times and you'd think that there's not a fish out there in that water.
I have experienced that so many times. It's kind of scary, but yep, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. No,
I was going to ask you about wind. I've heard like it's a windy day bait, so I was curious about that. If that's been your experience or.
Well, you know, yeah, it can play a big part in it, but see, I have a different philosophy about that. I can fish them anywhere. You know, like here where I'm at, current's everything. I mean, you take the Tennessee River chain, you take the Coosa River chain, most of the chains that are around here with world-class fisheries around them, there's some kind of current moving just about all the time. And that's all that is. If it's wind, it's pushing that water, making a little current. It actually does enhance it. But no, I don't have to have that wind. I mean, I fish them probably 70% of my time, and I've actually fished myself out of tournaments trying to make them hit it. You know, you're supposed to be listening to that fish and let him tell you what he wants. But dude, sometimes I'm like that kid with a square peg trying to beat it in that round hole. You know, I know you're going to eat it sooner or later. You know? But no, I'm one of those dudes. I'll throw it all day. Don't matter to me. I was talking to my wife not long ago. I need to find me something to keep my shoulders in shape because, dude, I will throw the paint off of spinnerbait. I will throw it.
Cool.
But no,
cool.
if I were going to give or allow tips to a total beginner, first of all, I would compare apples to apples. Make sure that you do that. And what I mean by that is the quality of the product. I mean, you tell the difference in some of those things. You know, make sure it's got a good hook and, you know, good components. Because, I mean, even if you pay $7 for it, I mean, $7 for me, that comes pretty tough. But you want a bait that's going to last you as long as it can last. And that's what I would do. And I'd go by, look at some of these websites and read. I mean, because there's a lot of knowledge out there right now, pros and cons. And, you know, that would be some good advice to you.
One thing I wanted to ask, I don't think we covered is retrieves. Are you pretty much doing a straight retrieve? You starting and stopping, slow rolling, you know, or all of the above?
Dude, there's days that I'm doing everything. I put my hands over my eyes and I'm casting backwards just to see if that works. You know, I put my one foot in the dip net, you know, I'll lick it a time or two. I'll do whatever it takes. You know what I'm saying? But no, I do vary the retrieve. I do. A lot of times I want it slow. A lot of times I want it fast. You know, I just play with it. I let the fish tell me what to do on that end of it. And I think that's where a lot of people are mistaken. That you know, they will tell you that a jig is the most versatile bait in their box, but I'd refute that. For me, you know, I can take that spinnerbait, and you know, if that's the only bait I had, I can make it mimic several different forages that bass truly like. You know, this time of year right now, we've had a wet summer, and in our area, they love sunfish. There's not a better imitator than that river series as a sunfish. I mean, they love that thing, and especially after I did a video last summer, and I think I re-updated it. I did it probably 5 years ago, but I learned this through smallmouth guys. I was on the New River when I won the championship in 2011. Ran into a little old fella out there, one of the homies, and dude, that river was up probably 10 feet. I mean, it was freaking nightmare. It scared the bejeebers out of me. And I let her settle down a couple of days before I ever got out there. But this little old fella told me, he's like, dude, I live for this. I was like, what are you talking about? He's saying that when that current gets that strong, it backs those smallies up in those little eddy pools. And he said, dude, it's money. And you know what? He taught me something. And I won that championship. All I could do, my wife was keeping up with me every day. I mean, I'd be trying to talk to her on the phone, and the river was roaring so loud you couldn't even hear. I mean, it was awful. She said, what's it like? I said, it's like riding a screen machine for about 10 hours and you can't get off of it. I said, that's what it's like. And I have one rod with a big old spinnerbait on it. But dude, I caught the biggest smallmouth I've ever caught in my life. It was awesome. So I took that lesson that I learned from that smallmouth guy, and I applied it to these spots because they're cousins too now. They are. And dude, I've caught some big old fish, especially after a rain. And in those eddies, I take that real chartreuse and that big old willow Colorado combo, and it can be magic, man. You can catch some of the biggest fish you'll catch all year. at those times after a thunderstorm. And but they don't even realize that. But I mean, that's money. You know, my thing is, you don't have to do what I do, but if you could take something that I'm talking about and apply it to what you do, that's what I do. You know, I'm not trying to play another man's game. I'm just trying to listen and let some of it sink in. But
right, that's
yeah, man,
what my show is all about,
I love
man. So good.
Well, again, now I can make this look like a bait fish. I can make this Pro Strike look like a crawfish. I can make it look like a frog. I mean, a bass is a bass is a bass. I don't care where you go. He has very basic needs. He has to have shelter, has to have food for sure. That's what drives him more than anything. He's got that brain about the size of a pea. I mean, you can't let that bass whip you. One of my look here's a good deal for your podcast. I know we got to be wrapping up, but one of my 14-year-olds, you know, they're smart. He's like, Dad, he says, does a bass drink? And I was like, you know, I don't know. There's a good question. So somebody comment in there if a bass drinks or not, because I say he's got to have shelter and he's got to have food. You know, like a human, we got to have shelter, water, and food. So there's your good question right there.
Interesting. All right. Well,
Oh yeah,
Tim, thanks so much for coming on. I wanted to give you an opportunity to shout out your sponsors, and also you mentioned about your videos and stuff. Where can folks find those videos?
I actually have an attempt at a YouTube page. It's all scatter cluster. You know, that's one of those things that's on my list to get straightened out. And I actually need somebody like you, Sean, that works with seniors and help me in that category. But I'll get there one day. But I'll run them on my Facebook page. And I think we're going to attach these specifically about spinnerbaiting onto the Redline page. So you can find us on redlinelures.com. I would like to shout out to Ricky. Ricky's just been tremendous to me and my family and all the others that are part of it. You know, Alan Crawley and some of the original guys that were there. But Ricky's really, he listened to me, you know, and I'm just proud that I've had that opportunity to have that relationship with somebody that's had on the water experience. That's hard to beat, you know. And I'm not saying that I know everything, but I'm just saying, dude, I've been there and had a lot of seat time, and you know, if we can listen and tweak, and dude, he's more than happy to do that. We've had a lot of failures, but we've had a lot of great product, and I appreciate him at redlinelures.com. Wilderness System Kayaks. Wilderness System has put me in a boat, and to me, again, you know, one specific kayak is not made for everybody, but it's just the tool that works for me, you know. And we've got a great product, had success out of it, and you know, I appreciate everything they do for me. And I had an opportunity to be around one of the premier teams in the country. I mean, they're some of the biggest names in the business came out of the Wilderness System pro staff, and Pure Fishing, Cables. I know I'm going to forget somebody, and you know, but I need to thank my wife. We need to do a podcast one night. Because in the beginning of this whole thing, that's actually my testimony, is where fishing took me. It was a bad place, dude. And there's a lot of guys, young guys, that I actually seen following. I followed in those footsteps, and I see them now, and I try to talk to them as much as I can. I speak at churches on those very same topics, you know. And we try to, if you've seen on my Facebook page, we try to do faith, family, and then fishing. Once upon a time, I put fishing above everything, and that's not the right way. But anyway, I want to thank my incredibly beautiful wife. I'm fixing to leave on Tuesday, and I'll be gone, probably 5 days. And we got 2 teenage boys that are active in sports. And, they're doing 2 sports at one time. They're playing football, and then we play baseball on Saturdays. And
wow.
So, when Daddy ain't there, she has to take over. And she runs a daycare. So she's superwoman. And I'm blessed to have her. And I appreciate my boys. They're always in my corner. And thank God. I appreciate you, man. I enjoy listening to your podcast, and a lot of times I don't have time to sit down and chit chat a lot, but and I don't know how to do this. I'm technically not savvy at all.
Hey, that's all right. That's all right. Definitely. I'm glad I could help you there. But,
I love talking about my passion, though. I do. I'm very passionate about fishing, and if I can help anybody, you just let me know. And I do. My kids get on to me all the time because only old people's on Facebook, and I'm one of those old people on Facebook, I'm trying to expand. I've got Instagram, and, some of that stuff, but it's all good, man. I appreciate you. I appreciate your time tonight too.
Yeah, same to you, man. I know
I would love
busy.
Now, one of these days, I'm gonna cousin Eddie and come to the Susquehanna River and stay with you.
I got a room. I got
October.
A room. You tell me when you're ready. So
sounds good. I got a spinnerbait.
All right. I may have to take you up on that. So all right, Tim. Well, thank you again for coming on. Everybody, this has been the Bass Fishing for Noobs segment of the Paddle and Fin I mess it up. The Paddle and Fin podcast, where we bring you the techniques, the tricks, and the tips to help you rip more lips. Have a good night, everyone.
Thanks for tuning in to another killer episode of Paddle and Fin. Don't forget to go check out our website at paddle_and_fin.com. Don't forget to check out the YouTube channel at Paddle and Fin. If you got a question, comment, want to hear from a future guest on a future episode, feel free to email us at paddle_and_fin@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Paddle and Fin on Facebook and Instagram. Shout out to our show supporters, Angler. The Angler button and app just makes for a better time on the water and creates a virtual logbook for every fishing outing out on the water. Shout out to Rocktown Adventures, located in northern Illinois, for all your kayaking, camping, and hiking needs. Shout out to Jig Masters Jigs. When in doubt, get the jig out. Go to jigmasters.com